Hope you're doing well today. Hope you have nothing but good health, prosperity, a strong mindset, and a healthy vision for the future. I want to talk about the natural desire to avoid discomfort. I was watching a video the other night, and it was a guy who basically challenged himself to cold approach 100 different women to get over his social anxiety. And I think there's a couple lessons from that video that I found interesting. So the first thing is, he starts off the video in the mall and he has to approach, I think, 20 women, and he gets rejected by 20 before he gets his first yes. Now, the interesting thing is this. He talks to 20 women, right? And then he kind of loses his motivation, he loses confidence. So then he ends up going to someone he knows, and it's this like older lady. And the older lady, she's his friend, so obviously she's like, yeah, like I'll go out with you. Now there's a couple things that obviously he did that kind of got him the 20 rejections in the first place, but you could tell that he's something that he doesn't do often. He's not used to, especially because one of his first approaches, he goes up to the girl and he's like, yeah, do you want to go out with me? Like, no name, no introduction, no conversation, right? So that's him kind of learning the learning curve of, I guess, the dating game. Because for the most part, if you approach someone with an offer that they have no buy-in for or interest in, you're relying on a very valuable product, right? Sorry, if your product isn't highly valued by the prospect, the odds of them wanting to buy it is going to be low, right? So that's the first thing. But over time, after the 20th, he goes to his friend, and then his friend is like, yes. Now, mind you, the woman in question is like 60 plus years old, right? They've known each other for a while, and he doesn't really, the stakes are low. So he moves the goalpost, right? After like 9 more rejections, he meets the 30th girl. The 30th girl actually says yes, right? So, and now he's gassed up and he's motivated again. He goes out, I think he does like a couple more, like 20 more in that day. And then after the 20, he ends up going back home. And he had only gotten one yes out of 40 total interactions, right? Or 35, I think it was. Now, what's interesting about this portion is the fact that sometimes when obstacles or goals that we have get a little challenging, it's easy to regress back into what is comfortable or more predictable, because the discomfort of growth is uncomfortable, right? Like, why would you put yourself through more rejections when you have a path that can actually give you a yes, right? If you know you have the easy way available to you, it's a lot more enticing to go that route. It was pretty interesting to see. But he's laying down in his bed, and he's basically like, my social anxiety is high right now. I don't feel motivated. I don't want to go and get rejected again. So I'm probably just going to go out and just talk to people, because I know that if I don't want to do it, that's when I have to do it most, which is an interesting mindset to have, right? Now, he does it. He gets out of bed. He goes out. Now, the interesting thing is this. He changed the rules, right, to make it a little bit more mentally bearable. So basically, instead of him going and asking people out on a date, which he was doing previously, he decided to go and just give people a compliment, right? So that's another thing that I found really interesting about human nature. And I'm not saying I'm using this video to just blanket term everyone, but it is a very common thought process, right? And it's interesting seeing it from someone else's perspective. But basically, he goes from asking out on a date, which has a high risk of rejection and discomfort and just embarrassment and whatever, to giving a compliment, right? A subtle compliment. And he was counting that as cold approaching. So he basically changed the rules of the experiment. Now, I think what's interesting about that is the fact that now the original outcome intended from the experiment has changed. And if you change the goalpost, you change how effective the strategy becomes, right? Because if your goal now is just to talk to people, right, that's something that maybe isn't going to be as beneficial for the skill you're looking for. It's not like it's not, but it's not the original intended plan. And I think it's easy, and this is the second lesson that I'm kind of drawing from this video, is that it's easy for us to lie to ourselves about the progress that we're making, right? And sometimes we create stories in our head that validate the way that we feel more than the actual reality of our situation, right? And I do this, you do this, don't lie, right? Sometimes it's easier to shift the goalpost and count it as a score, right? So now his number's like jumping up. Oh, I approached 41, 43, 48, 49, and his numbers are boom, 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 jumping and jumping and jumping. If you have a goal, right, and you have a goal that's actually going to make a meaningful change in your life, it's important to kind of stick to that goal, because if you sway it, the impact it'll have on your life is going to be much different than what you originally intended, right? And another thing is just to be honest with yourself. When you lie about the progress you're making, or you lie about the challenge that you're facing, the only person that suffers from the change is you, right? You've probably set yourself up for goals that you've wanted to accomplish for a while, right? I think a very common one is like starting a YouTube channel. I feel like that's something that I hear a lot of people that I speak to in my day-to-day life. They'd be like, oh, like I've always wanted to do YouTube, or at least make a channel, but like I never have, right? And then they'll buy the equipment and they'll have everything ready, but they'll never start. And I think it's easy for us to pretend that we are making progress in something we want to achieve without actually making progress, right? The reality of your situation won't change, right? You can dance around the topic. You can pretend to be busy when you're not. But the honest truth is, if you actually do want something to change for yourself, you have to be willing to focus on what's uncomfortable and be real with yourself. If you're not that good at something, admit it. Just say, hey, I'm not that good at it. And be okay with not being good at it, right? Because the biggest obstacle you'll face is your own mindset. The way you talk about yourself, the way you think about yourself is going to determine your actions, right? So if you're out here and you're pretending to do something you're not, you're only hurting yourself, really, because at the end of the day, it's an outcome that you want out of your own life. Take accountability for yourself. Don't be afraid to admit when you're not good at something. And even if you aren't good at something, if you need to make it easier for yourself, that's fine. But don't confuse your original goal with the new goal that you've created. Take your time, forgive yourself for your mistakes, and be patient. Watch this video, subscribe, and I'll catch you tomorrow.